Hello everyone, this is Cristiana Eltrayan, your host for the Pranic Consciousness Summit. And we're here tonight with Nassim Haramein, the director of the Resonance Science Foundation and a renowned physicist researching the unification theory. Hello Nassim, and so happy to have you here with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
People were really happy when they heard you joined our Pranic Consciousness Summit, because here we are talking with scientists and the spiritual researchers, but also the people who have brought new discoveries to humanity in all type of sciences. So we're honored to have you with us. And because now we are at the Pranic Consciousness Summit, how would you define consciousness?
Yeah, we call it consciousness. But most of the time we say consciousness, but it's not defined. You know, they say consciousness, but what is that? Well, actually, if you look in the dictionary, the definition of consciousness is really not obvious. In general, is described as self-awareness. And self-awareness demands feedback. So yeah, we're like an antenna, but like a transceiver. We transmit and we receive information, and this feedback mechanism is what we call consciousness.
So basically, our transmission out is what creates the further layers of the universe, or of the world as we perceive it.
Yeah, if you'd like. And it's not a transmission out, it's a transmission in, because we're made of the atoms that are connected to the field. So we're actually inward transmitting and then receiving from the outward.
Yes, we do understand your perspective, and it is true. We've seen your work is very connected. As we followed your work from the years before, like maybe 5-10 years before, I don't know exactly, we've seen that you are very connected also to the ancient civilizations and the sacred geometry and the stuff that made the evolution of humanity. How is this linked to what happens now on the planet?
Well, I was since I was able to study physics independently, I was very interested in many different fields that I felt had information that was important. And I found that all these ancient civilizations from all around the world, many of them had all this concept of a fundamental field of information, a fundamental field of energy that was in everything. And even later on, I mean, there's prana and there's chi and all these different description of it. But even later on, the concept of God is a concept that there is something that's in everything, that knows everything, and that organizes the world. I just felt like it had never actually been described appropriately in physics. And when I was studying physics, I found an analog field description in quantum theory. In fact, in quantum field theory, that describes something very similar. So I thought maybe the two go together. And, I developed quite a different philosophy of physics based on this.
So the ancient civilization would have known these things already, and we've seen that they have very advanced technology in building the pyramids and all, and the cosmology they studied and everything. And even I was watching your work about the position of the pyramids, and also the way, for example, the mountains in my country are aligned to certain constellations. and the certain energy points, very important energy points on the planet and in my country too, are aligned to certain constellations. And these civilizations seem to have known much more than we know now. Would you say that your work is discovery, or is it remembering?
Yeah, it might be remembering what we already knew. And certainly, I don't teach anything. I think people remember within themselves, when they come across things that resonate with them. But yes, ancient civilizations seem to have known all this. There's very many anomalies all around the world in temples everywhere, and sacred sites where very large stones were moved, in some cases hundreds of miles over rivers and mountains, stones that we couldn't move that far with our technology today, not at all, not anywhere close. Very highly precise building, all kinds of anomalies that you don't expect from primitive civilization. They showed a very high level of sophistication with technology that exceeds what we can reproduce today. And so to me, but none of these civilizations, at least none of the ones I studied, and I studied a lot of them, said that they got this on their own. They didn't say that they got this information on their own. They said that sun gods came from the sky, people that were in floating boats in the sky, and that they came to the earth and that they taught them everything they knew, from language to mathematics to engineering and to the workings of the universe and so on. And so, that led me to think that maybe humanity in a very distant past had a completely different evolution in which they might have had contact with advanced civilization, maybe from our galaxy or the universe as a whole.
And
And
they,
of course, now we are discovering that most stars have planets, that, the estimate currently, and that's a very conservative estimate, is that there is at least 40 billion Earth planets in our galaxy alone. So that's a lot of different civilizations that could be out there.
and basically your measurements on the mass of the universe, like I heard you discussed about it, would be based on these studies.
Based on the study, on which studies?
About the amount of planets and galaxies there are. Because I know at some point you calculated the estimated mass of the universe, or am I right?
That's correct. And even I even calculated the estimated mass of the multiverse, that is the universe that we're in. But these estimates of how many Earth-like planets are in our galaxy are not from this. They're from direct observation. For the last about almost 10 years, we've been discovering exoplanets, planets that are not in our solar system, planets that are orbiting other stars in our galaxy. And at first we thought that there was not many stars that has planets, and that water is pretty rare in the universe. And that's an argument I used to have with physicists all the time 25 years ago. But now, because I thought there's no reason why there wouldn't be so many planets, my physics were saying actually that planets should be quite common and that water should be quite common. And so since then, they've discovered that most stars have planets from observation, because when we look at a star in our galaxy, if a planet goes by, it dims a little bit, when the planet is going by the face of the sun. And we can calculate the dimming, and now we have instruments that are able to even start to see if they have an atmosphere or not, and what is the composition of that atmosphere. And so we've been able to find planets that have atmospheres now, and we've been able to find planets that most likely have water on them. And we haven't been able to find a place in the universe where we don't see spectral lines of water. There's water everywhere floating around. And, and so basically, from the amount of planets we've discovered, observed, they're able to estimate how many planets. First of all, they're finding that most stars have planets, and that there's billions and billions of stars in every galaxy, and so it's really common for planets to for stars to have planets, and then they calculated how many planets out there. In a conservative way, would be in the right region where it wouldn't be too hot, too close to the star, or too far from the star. It's called the Golden region. And how many planets are in that Golden region? And it's remarkable. It's billions and billions of planets that could have life on it. And some of these planets most likely have had life a lot longer than we have. And that life could be very, very advanced technologically. We advanced remarkably in 150 years since the industrial era. Imagine a planet that has 1,000 years of industrial development, 1,000,000 years, or a few million years. What does a computer look like a few million years from now? It's completely different, correct? Probably a civilization 1,000,000 years more advanced than us is able to control gravitational field. It's able to open wormholes. It's able to do all kinds of things that we can't imagine today.
We have looked at your work about studying the wormholes and the ability to extract energy out of vacuum.
Yes, absolutely. That can be done technologically, and that leads as well to your conference, because I think it can be done biologically as well.
This was my next question, but I'm staying to the first questions because there's still a bit of information in it. Would you say I'm linking two things that you said before. Would you say that humanity is conscious enough, evolved enough to be able to travel to other planets and maybe inhabit them? This was a theory that I heard of recently in your work and other people's work, and also in mainstream movies, not only documentaries. But we were wondering, are we conscious enough to go to another planet looking at what we did here?
I think that we're slowly getting there. I think that we are transforming our world right now. I think there's some technologies that are going to come out. Some of the technologies I'm working on and other laboratories around the world are working on, that is going to completely transform our understanding of energy and gravity and give us gravity control. I think that's going to change the dynamic very fundamentally in our economy and the way we look at resources, because when you have almost an infinite amount of energy because you're tapping into the Pranic field, or you're able to control gravity because you're engineering the way the field functions, the concept that you have to war to get energy, that you got to go to war to get energy, or you have to go to war to get resources or land even, when you're able to go around the solar system or the galaxy or even the universe, all that really goes away. And I think it's a combination of us kind of rising to this moment in our evolution where we have to do something because our planet is suffering, if we make it past this point, having the technology to transform that. And I really believe that we're approaching that point very rapidly, and that the technology is literally hooked in to that pranic field that you guys are talking about.
Yeah, we're also wondering about these experiments because I know there are several around the world. Some of them are known, some of them are not public yet. We know human civilization has done it before. I'm thinking Atlantis now. Are we ready to you know what I'm asking? Are we ready now to not do the same mistakes without playing with playing with energy? What's your opinion?
Yeah, I think we're reaching that point. I think we're getting ready. There's a fundamental collapse of our structures right now. If you look in the financial structure, in the political structure, in many different social structures, everything is changing, and it's changing fast. And solutions have to come forward. It's either we tap into this fundamental field and move to the next level of evolution, or we're not going to make it. So I don't think we have much of a choice. We have to learn to work together. We have to learn to love each other, and we have to learn to interact with the universe in a harmonious way instead of fighting our way in, but actually harmonizing with the structure of space-time and actually learning to use the forces that are already provided to us. I mean, all the energy we extract was given to us by nature, whether it's, hydroelectric or nuclear or coal or oil or whatever we use, it was given to us. Well, there's deeper level of energies in the universe that are as well present that we can utilize. And we have to learn that lesson now, because otherwise we're just not going to make it.
And we know there were people, maybe even 5,000 years ago, that were speaking of it, people who have known science in a different way, maybe through meditation or other journeys that they had without scientific demonstrations. They were capable of extracting that energy out of vacuum. What's your opinion about that? Is the human system capable of doing this without any device or machine?
Yes,
No?
I think the body and consciousness is actually evidence that it's doing it every second. It's doing it every Planck second. Your consciousness and the organization in your body the body is a carnal engine. Like it produces significant amount of heat continuously, 24/7. It's extracting it from food. But actually, if so you're putting atoms in your body, this fuel, but actually if you add the numbers, it doesn't quite add up, in fact, and I think you've had other researchers on your in your conference that talk about that. There was a book written by physicists that showed that actually it doesn't quite add up. You can't account for all the thermodynamic and energy dynamics of the body just by the amount of food that's being put in. So it actually, and then you have all these, these masters that have talked about being able to levitate, being able to arrest eating, stop eating, in some case even stop drinking. And so on, and and fed directly on this fundamental field. And I don't see, I see a direct path in the physics for that to be true. I think it's totally already happening, and it's just a question of increasing the amount of energy we're tapping into, and then I think things that we think of as miraculous can be done. Is that practical for humanity? Not necessarily, meaning that the technological evolution of tapping into that field is just as important. The two have to be in combination so that humanity is freed from living on the surface of one planet and start living in the universe by knowing how to, control gravity. So even if you meditate for 10 years in a cave and learn to levitate, that's great, but you can't levitate yourself into space because now you're going to run out of air. And so, and it's not a practical way of functioning. Our society is not going to all start levitating. So the technological externalization of a higher level of understanding is just important. That's the feedback I was talking about earlier. It's us and it's the world, and it's us and it's the world.
Yes, and we have to do it in a global way.
Yeah.
Is there an echo? No, it's fine. And going back to your life, because you speak about prana and the ability of extracting this energy, we know that you have done it, and I know our audience is very curious to know, how did you come to this? How did you experience of living on or in harmony with prana?
So this happened by, if you believe in chance, what happened is that when I was 10 years old, I was very discouraged about the world. I didn't fit in school very well. I had a lot of problems, integrating in the world. I didn't feel comfortable here, and I was pretty well suicidal. I was kind of ready to jump out of a window. I lived on the fifth floor of a story building, and I asked my mom if it would hurt her a lot if I wasn't around, and my mom was kind of shocked and desperate to find a solution. And interestingly, a few months later, a friend of our family had gone to a talk by an Indian master called Maraji, and I invited him to the talk, and my mom and I went. My mom brought me because she thought maybe it would make me feel better about the world. As soon as I learned that there was a way to learn to meditate, I was 11 years old by then. I thought I wanted to learn that. So I learned those meditation techniques that young guru talked about. He was barely older than me. I was 11. I think he was like 16 or 14 or 16. And so I learned these things. And one of the technique was a technique to there's four techniques, and the four techniques were different ways of experiencing the pranic field, or this fundamental field. And so one was light, one was sound, one was breath, and the other one was nectar. And so I learned those techniques, and I practiced them from then on, from 11 years old, and much later on. At the end of my ski career, my professional ski and climbing career, when I decided to get into physics full time, and since I had zero financing, I was financing it on my own, I moved into a van so I wouldn't have to pay rent. And, for 5 years, I studied extremely intensely, some 15 to 20 hours a day. Continuously. I would only get out of my van to climb. I was a solo climber. I climbed in the morning at sunrise, and I climbed at sunset every afternoon. And then I would come back to my van and continue studying. And I stopped sleeping a lot of the time, but I wasn't running out of energy. I was so high on the energy of the research I was doing and the excitement of what I was discovering. And I had so little stressors because I had no cell phone, I had no computer, I had nothing. And I just meditated and researched continuously. And my state of being became so true. And I was in nature. I had very little contact with anybody. Because I was a solo climber. I didn't have ropes. I didn't have to have a buddy. I didn't, I just did my thing. I became so energetic and so tuned into the field that I could feed on it. And when I did my techniques of nectar, I could taste it, and it was filling me of energy. And since I had very little resources, I just stopped eating. And I still have to this day a letter that I wrote my father in Montreal at the time. I was in the desert in Joshua Tree, and it's probably the only letter I wrote during those 5 years. And I was telling him that I was trying to say it gently because I didn't want to freak him out, but that basically I had stopped eating, and I stayed that way. I drank very little water, although I was climbing and in the desert, and I actually gained 3 pounds during those 3 years where I ate very little. And I did have bites here and there. Some of the times I would get invited at friends' place that were thinking, I gotta let him take a shower, and you know, and so I had these friends once in a while that would invite me, and I would eat a meal with them. But in general, I stopped eating, and I was just in an amazing state. And during that time, I even had two moments of experiences of levitation. One of them was witness, and in both cases I didn't do it on purpose. I was sleeping, but in the one case when I was sleeping at a friend's apartment, because he had given me the key and said, if you need to take a break from the van and you want to take a shower, you can do this. Just go in my house and make yourself at home. And so one day I was by his house, and I thought I'd go and take a shower and rest. And I did that, and I laid down on a carpet in front of his bed because I didn't want to be in his bed. And you came home, and he opened the door of his room, and I happened to be a few inches above the carpet, and I dropped to the ground because it startled me, and I wasn't aware that I was off the ground. And since then, I've been wanting to do a study where we weigh people when they sleep very precisely, because I believe that people might actually do some levitation when they sleep, when they're in REM state of sleeping, even if it's only losing a few grams that can't be accounted for. But I can't certify that until I do the study. So I really would like to do the study.
We would like that too, because we need that information. It's very interesting. And we know these cases happen, and there are cases where we become invisible, or we change shape. It's very natural. I mean, to me, it's very natural what you're saying. And
it might be startling to the scientific community what I just said. However, it's from direct experience, and that's all I'm reporting on.
Where there comes a time when science is going to meet these things, and even maybe approach them in a scientific way, so that they become more not popular, but they are part of the day-to-day life of some people, and we are not freaks. We are natural human beings.
Yeah,
So,
I think that everybody does these things at certain levels, at one level or another. Like we were saying, the amount of food we eat doesn't add up to the amount of energy we spend. So, people are already tapped into that field. In fact, the physics I just wrote show that our consciousness is a tap into that field. So the fact that we're here thinking about it is it's an amazing thing. It's an amazing miracle, and people should be aware of that.
yes, and we know that the only thing that separates us from the possibility of being in that state permanently is the very conception that we are separated from something and that we need to get resources from something, when in fact there's all inside, there's all everywhere actually. And
Right.
this makes me wonder, if you still have time, this makes me wonder, why did you come back to the normal way of living? Because it seems like a very interesting period for you, and very
Yeah.
full of
Well,
nice experiences.
I actually think that I came back to the artificial way of living. I was doing the normal way of living, being in nature. But yeah, I got more and more artificial things into my living, like computers and cell phones and stuff. The reason I came back was that I was happy to spend the rest of my life in my van, just doing my thing. I was, or even just going back to the sport industry after I had found what I wanted to find. I, at the time I didn't feel I needed to write all the math for it. I had so much evidence that was I felt so solid. From all the studies I had done. But I had started to write the math, and it seemed to add up. And so you know, because I was doing all this for my personal uh, enlightenment, I wasn't doing this to actually do anything with it. I didn't learn. But when I tried, I thought at one point I took all my research in my van. What happened is I climbed one night and I got to the top of the mountain. The top of the bluff that I was climbing in Joshua Tree, and I could see LA in the distance. I could see the light coming from LA in the distance. And I thought, this work will probably never be understood here. And I don't know that I can bring this to the world. So I should just burn it. So I'd grab all my stuff in my van, all my research, and I had like piles and piles of it. I made a big fire and I was going to throw it all in. And a voice came into me that told me, we haven't given you all this for nothing. So go out there and don't be afraid to tell the world what you found. Because I was really just fear that I would be completely rejected. And it was. But I learned to have a thick skin and not take it personally, although I still do.
Sometimes, yes.
But I decided, okay, I'll try. And I felt now I need to reintegrate the world. That was really hard, actually. Getting in relationships and all the stuff that comes with it, and responsibilities and all this. Actually, I discovered that I had learned very little about that part. I had learned a lot about physics and everything else about the universe, but relationships I still struggle with that one.
We totally understand you, and we subscribe to that from time to time. It's the universe and the cosmos is very interesting, but when we get to people and even closer people, that
Yeah,
becomes a little challenging.
yeah, the variables are very large. It's very difficult.
And I often say to my friends, well, it's very good you know how to meditate, and it's very good you know how to search the cosmos for new stuff that is going on up there. But try living a day next to a woman, and then tell me how enlightened you are. And then,
Exactly. I do understand now why so many masters just didn't have relationships.
yeah, it's a
Definitely the largest challenge.
it's very tempting for us to retreat when we discover these things and to go deeper into them. But some of us really have to be in the world and spread it further. And if that's our job, then there's not much escape from it.
Yes, I think at this time in history, it's important that we actually not only not separate ourselves from the physical world, but actually integrate into the physical world at the deepest level. Because the physical world is really this link to the spiritual world. The structure of the physical world is linked into this field. And so we have to have all the experiences of the physical world, including family and partners and, businesses and all the stuff that comes with it. But to be able to do that with that same level of awareness, that's the challenge. And if we succeed at that, then we will make the difference required for our world to thrive instead of a world that's dying.
So true. So as above, so below means taking that energy of high consciousness, high awareness, and bring it here into our day-to-day living. There's no longer the time for being a master in a cave now, for none of us.
That's right.
That's how I feel it. I must confess that I was tempted to do that for some time as well, but I was not allowed. I was not allowed. After 3 weeks, I was told to just go back to where I am now and continue what I'm doing. And so, yeah. How do you feel? Should we continue, or you? Because
I'm good for another 5 minutes.
perfect. I want to ask you about the special children that are coming now into the world with these special energies that they are bringing in. I know you have children, and I work a lot with them as well in energy awareness, and you seem to have been and be a special child yourself.
Yeah, I think that the new children are amazing. I think every generation, the concept, in education that there is levels of evolution of a young child into adulthood where their cognitive capacity is very much set at certain age. They're able to do certain things, and at other age, other things. I think that's all incorrect because I think that from one generation to the other, it completely changes. I think the new generation are much more advanced in their thinking than the average kids from our generation, and and um, and it's remarkable. I mean, uh, there's so many genius kids out there that are bringing in amazing information, and they know it directly from the structure of space-time. They're not learning it literally, linearly. They actually know it naturally. I mean, I have seen amazing things from young children. my children even, 4 years old beating the computer at chess, things like that. And so
Yes.
um, there's all sorts of amazing beings coming to our world right now, and we have to have a better way of dealing with them than the current typical educational system, because they just don't fit in there very well. So a lot of them end up on various, chemical compounds, whether legal or illegal, because they're trying to get numb, so that they fit in there. And I think that that has to be rectified. We have to understand that these beings are there for a specific mission. The kids are there to offer their gift, and having them sit at the desk for 8 hours a day listening to lectures from their professor may not be the appropriate thing. And so I'm happy to see that many schools are being started that are project-based schools, and where kids learn by project. I think that is the best way. Like that, they can really excel and be excited about what they're doing, and they learn along the way how to write, how to count, how to do these things. But they're doing it while they're excited about a project that they're birthing. And I think it's a really great way of transforming our educational system to help the kids bring it to the world.
Yes, thank you for that. And we sure hope that at some point, not very far from here, the education about energy science will be in school. And I don't only mean the mainstream energy science, but the science of harnessing our own energies. This is
Yeah,
what I mean.
yeah,
And we've been doing, please.
yeah. No, sorry. That should definitely be part of the curriculum. Kids should be. I mean, the concept of doing yoga and meditation is not so, outside the mainstream. I mean, that is the mainstream at this point. Like, I live in California. Okay, California is California, but still, I mean, everybody here does yoga. Everybody, meditation is not such a weird concept anymore. I think that should be part of the curriculum for children. I was very glad that I learned to meditate when I was 11. I mean, I think children should have that opportunity.
Yes, and we hope this is. I've heard some schools in San Francisco or elsewhere are already doing this, but it should become mainstream. The last thing I want to bring up is we hear you speak about space-time as a definition for everything that surrounds us and is in us, for the vacuum energy that you are tapping into. Would you say there is something beyond space-time, or space and time are just human perceptions? And also, to continue that and complete with it, there is a saying that love is the only thing that transcends space and time, the only language that runs through the fabric of it all. What do you feel about that?
Okay, well, this is a difficult question. I could get quite technical about it, but let me just try to make it simple. So in this latest paper I published on biophysics and consciousness, I changed the word space-time for the word space memory, because without memory, there is no time. If you don't remember the moment before, you don't know about the next moment. You don't see evolution. If you were to lose all memory in every Planck second, you would not see evolution. So if there's a revolution in the universe, there is time. If there's time, there is memory, meaning that the universe has a fundamental memory structure. So that all the information that you are and all the information that you produce by, moving things around and acting upon things and all this is recorded on this fundamental hard drive of that field. This is the same field that the ancient called the Akashic record.
Akashic field, yes.
And so, you know, which is related to the pranic field. And this is how, you know, information, and only in that sense would I say that there is something beyond space-time, and that is that space-time is an incorrect concept. It's space memory. And so, of course, if all the information is present in the space memory network and all the points are connected through wormholes, then you should be able to go from one space memory to another space memory, you know, instantaneously. And that means that time is an illusion, and that we can transcend time. We will never transcend space, because you will have different qualities of space, meaning you'll have a certain density at the quantum level, you'll have a different density at the galactic level, you'll have a different density at the universal level, and again at the multi-universal level. So you'll have different quantities, different qualities of space, but certainly we can transcend time.
Yes, thank you for that. And we see there's a huge amount of mental energy in your work. A huge amount. By studying these last few days, I've had to totally shift my state of being, you know, to be able to encompass that. And yet you are so centered in the heart. How do you maintain this balance?
It's a constant struggle. And so, although I may appear to make it easy, in my private life, I am constantly struggling to maintain an open heart. You know, there's all kinds of things in our world that are so abrasive to the human being that it's very easy to close down, get angry, get upset, you know, do all the, you know, you're driving on the highway, you get cut off by 10 people. I mean, it's just, and so your phone rings and this and that, and the kids are sick or whatever. I'm a single dad, so you know, it's busy. And so, you know, it's a constant, but you know what? If I every day make a conscious effort, even for a few minutes, to open my heart, to meditate, to go inside, then I can go back to that as soon as I feel like I've lost the connection. You know, it's easy to go back. It's like a muscle. You have to exercise, right? I mean, the heart is literally a muscle, but you know, but keeping a loving, open attitude, and I think appreciation, you know, of a state of appreciation, you know, which helps opening your heart, meaning that even in the worst circumstances, there's still things to appreciate. You know, you're breathing, you know, you're experiencing the world. You know, it's never as bad as it looks. And even on the deathbed, you know, there's this possibility of appreciation of this great transition you're about to encounter. And so this, I think, is something that I work at. And although it appears easy or a natural state, it actually is the result of spending significant amount of time, even daily, just working on staying open.
So it's intention and practice, basically, and it's going back to that every time we zone out of it.
Yes, exactly. And I failed commonly but it's okay. We all do, I think. You know, there may be people that don't, but that's not my case. And it's not about how many times we failed, is how fast we can go back, and how much time are we in that state of openness relative to the times where we're closed.
Yes, that's very important too. Thank you so much for sharing this with us. It was for us, it was a beautiful, beautiful conversation. And we thank you for your time, because you've given us more than we expected.
Thank you.
And yes, tell us where we can find you next. What's your next best thing, your next best project?
Oh, well, you know, people can go to the Resonance Science Foundation, is our website. It's at resonance.is. We have courses there at the Resonance Academy. That's a great thing that people can do. Take the course, the delegate program course. It has all the physics and all the philosophy in it, and then and all the references you need and all the information you need. And then you get to connect as well with you know, a student body of about 5,000 people from 72 different countries in the world. And every month, for 2 hours, I come on Zoom meeting, and then we have questions and answers. People can talk to me, and then they have breakout groups where you get to be with people from all around the world in little breakout groups, and you can see them all, and you can talk with people about all these subjects. So that's a really cool thing. I'm working in laboratory, you know, and as well we have an upcoming trip to Egypt where we're going to all have a delegate program. All the students are going to come to Egypt. I'm working in laboratory on technology. There's some technologies that are going to come out in the next few months. So keep your eyes peeled for that. That have to do with what I'm wearing. This is really exciting. There's papers I'm finishing on the electron and on cosmology that are coming out. So I have a lot of things going on. So if people want to stay in touch, the best way is to go to our website, resonance.is. Resonance is.
Yes, and I want to also share that I just discovered channel 64 this morning, or the other morning, and that's an interesting thing to watch too, because there's part of your conversation from the Academy. So thank you so much for everything. And our viewers can find more details about Nassim, and if ever you forget his website, it's on our participant page. You can go back to that and remember what he said about his contact data. And please stay tuned with us for the next interviews that are coming on. And thanks everyone for watching.
Thank
Have
you
a
so
nice
much.
We are grateful for your presence.